the time to join in. Whether you're going to join in tonight watching the live stream or you're going to catch the rerun on this show, I want to let you know that I do deeply, truly do appreciate it. Well, how's everybody doing out there? I am doing fine. Um, it has been a busy week, as always. So I enjoyed the baby. Hey, Ben, sir. Hope you're well as well. Yeah, been a busy week and running to and fro and doing this and that. And of course, thinking about what I'm going to talk about for the live stream and present to you guys this evening. I hope not to disappoint this evening. Um, but I like to start off with something in the week that usually sparks these conversations. I had an opportunity to purchase for a client of mine a made in Mexico Fender Kurt Cobain Jag Stang. And I had to go to a distributor dealer and pick it up and so that I could get it at a good price. And the only thing about it is I didn't play it myself, and the reason is I didn't even bother to review it before I passed it on to my client is because it was a lefty. He's a guy who's a left-hand guitar player. But what I did get to do was I did get the opportunity to really check it out. I had it here in studio. I got the opportunity to really give it a fine going through. And wow, I've got to say, if that's an example of the made in Mexico Fenders these days, I have nothing to say. It was a phenomenal guitar, beautiful, like a baby powder blue. Hey, how you doing? Welcome, welcome. Doing fine. It was a baby powder blue with a white kind of sparkle pick guard on it. And this model actually came with a rosewood neck. Now I know that these days Fender is shipping a lot of stuff with Paul Ferro. Is that what it's called? Paro Ferro? How do we pronounce that? For their fretboard material, no, this one actually had rosewood, and it was gorgeous piece of rosewood. And actually, the best is it really one of the best rosewood fretboards I've seen recently. I noticed that even with rosewood, they're starting to get lighter and lighter and lighter. It seems like the quality is dropping. Not with this one. Fit and finish on this guitar was excellent. When I got it to my client, it was for her son, and her son next door here to me to his mom's shop. And I said, hey, I'll tell you what. I said, why don't you come check it out first before you commit to it, see how you like it, see what you think, and I'll bring down my amp and to the shop and you can play it. So he said, groovy. I've heard that Jag Stang is baby blue, great. Yeah, I'm not kidding, guys. Ben and all you guys, I'm serious. It not only looked beautiful, but when I plugged, he's a young guy, about 24, 25 years old. When I plugged in my amp, he had his one and only pedal that he uses. Interesting, what was a Behringer pedal, and I found that to be pretty funny. But a Behringer muff, that was it. And plugged it to my amp, and he started to play. And he's a solid player, really good player. And it did two things. First, it impressed upon me, wow, man, you can get 9 with the Mustang style switching that you can do with the pickups on that. You can get 9 different configurations of pickup tones out of that thing. That makes it an extremely versatile guitar. That we were messing around with it because he didn't know. He wasn't familiar with that kind of system. So I was going through it with him, and boy, we were dialing in surf rock. We were dialing in real, good hard rock, clean country, bluesy kind of stuff. Just really a versatile guitar. And the funny part about it was he had never played through a tube amp before. Playing that guitar through my tube amp, was the first. He said to me, and I was shocked. He said, "You know, I've never played through a tube amp before. 25 years old, guitar player, decent, really decent player, solid, good timing, and he had never played through a tube amp before." I said, "Well, what do you have?" And he says, "I have a modeling amp, a Fender modeling amp." And I said, "Oh, that's pretty groovy. You can get a lot of stuff out of that. So versatile thing." But guess what tribute in my lap? Mary Jane in the air. Well, just make sure you don't light up your guitar. My mistake. Good to have you here. Good to have you here. Always welcome. Everybody, please enjoy and relax. Yeah, man. And he had never, 25 years old, and he had never played through a tube amp before. That blew my mind. And I said, well, you know, I was trying to keep a straight face about it. I didn't want to, like, what? You know, you've never played through a tube amp before? And I tried to keep a straight face about it. And I said, well, what did you think? You know? And he said, I explained to him, hey, good evening. Good evening. Yeah, and he said, it just sounds wonderful. And he was getting some beauty. And for me, the second thing I got out of it, I never had the opportunity to abstractly listen to my amp. I've always been the one playing it. And to be able to just sit back and listen, you know, sit by while somebody else playing a guitar that had never been played through this amp before, and just sitting back and listening to the kid play, I thought to myself, wow, I'm never letting this amp go. Because we were able, with that amp and that one little muff pedal, we were able to get a lot, and he loved it. So he said, yeah, I'll take it. So that was good. So in that regard, I found him. It had to be a lefty, and it had to be some. He has a Les Paul, and he has a Strat, and he wanted something a little bit different. And I said, hey, I think I've got just the thing. But for myself personally, I can recommend that guitar to you guys all day long. It's pretty pricey. It's weird. I was looking at the prices on those guitars, and they're a little bit all over the place, to be honest with you. Let me see. I had it here. Yeah, here we go. They're going here in the Netherlands. They're going as high as $1,750, basically, when you round it up. $1,750 for that guitar. Now, guys, I'm gonna let you know right now, I didn't pay anywhere near that for that guitar. As a matter of fact, I'm quite proud that I actually was able to get a little bit more of a discount, even on a lower price than what it typically is going for here. Now, I asked, there was a price difference. It was actually cheaper than the right-handed. So the lefty, in this case, was cheaper than the right-handed version of it, too, by about 60 euros. So between that and the discount, I got 110 discount going there just by getting the lefty of this model. So if you're a lefty player out there, I can highly recommend it, too. But the prices on these guitars are all over the place. And I think it's a good segue into one of my main topics tonight. You know, that's insane to me that there's such a high spectrum. I paid around $11.50 just for full disclosure for mine. Nowhere near the $17.50 that other dealers here in town are asking for. It does help that I know a distributor dealer, guy that you guys know who I'm talking about. I've been dealing guitars with this guy for 20 years. So that does help. But the fact that the prices on this particular model are all over the place is surprising to me. I've seen them as high as $17.50. I've seen them as low as $12.50. I'm sorry, $12.99 in dollars. And I just am really, it got me wondering what's going on with the pricing. We talk about, always mention the pricing in the used market on Reverb and eBay and places like that. But what the heck is going on with the manufacturers and their pricing? You know, Barry is always kind enough when I'm there to go and explain aspects of the business that I've somehow made the mistake of falling into as one of the things that I do. And he was explaining, well, the model that you're buying is a 2021, and the 2022s are the ones that have gone up 400. I said, that doesn't make any sense. So that means that if I can find a dealer that has a 2021 model and a 2022 model, he's going to have those same models priced that big of a difference. And he said, yeah, it's effectively yes. I said, that's insane. Of course, the consumer, is in the position to buy if he's there and he's lucky enough to be first come, first serve. Then, of course, he's going to go for the lower price of those two models. So that's such a big gap. It got me thinking. I was like, wow, this is insane. And then I started digging into other price increases. As we know, both Fender and Gibson and Epiphone within the last 12 to 24 months, roughly, have been gradually increasing their prices. And we've been looking at it on this channel purely from the electric guitar angle. I decided to take a peep into what's going on with companies. Hey, Mickey, hey, good to see you, man. Thank you for showing up. Good to see you, brother. Thank you, thank you. Good friend of this channel. Um, yeah, the Martins, for example, have shot up next month, or they will shoot up next month, $200. This is on top of the fact that something like a D28 or some Martins that you could have got back in 2022 for around 2,400, they are now effectively $1,000 more, a little bit more than a year later. And that, if we, I mean, imagine waking up one morning and your Epiphones had jumped up $1,000 in price. Is that a fair? Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, any guitar, Fender, Epiphone, any one of them have jumped up in that amount of time. That significant of amount. Now, you guys will point out to me, well, Mike, when you bought your 2019 new inspired by line, the first of Gibson Les Paul standard 60s, you paid somewhere in the neighborhood of around 1950 or something like that for that. And now those guitars are about to $29.99, dang well $3,000. And I would say to you, well, if you look back at the price of Les Pauls prior, before they were going into bankruptcy, and they were going for $3,000. It's when the new management came in that they significantly dropped down those prices. Then they started climbing. Now we're back to basically where they were. Interesting enough, at the same time, they have a change in management. They're back up to where they were at prior to the latest regime at Gibson. And so, no, the movement there was actually benefiting the consumer in that case. We were the ones that were benefiting from that because that was a great deal on those guitars, which is why if you see a standard 60s, I said inspired by, I'm sorry guys, that would be the Epiphone version, but the standard 60s and 50s, the rework versions that came out in the latter half of 2019 with the new management at Gibson, that's what I'm talking about. And I wouldn't see myself paying more than that for that. That's the value that I've put on those guitars. And yet, of course, we are seeing that in the used market, people are asking far more than that. Are they getting it? Well, that's a subject for another time. But with the acoustic guitars, when you're looking at something that was its price, $2,400 back in February of 2022, fast forward now to June of 2023, And they're talking about an additional price increase that will bring that up to $1,000 more than it was back in February of 2022. And that is an astounding price. I had no idea acoustic guitars were going through that kind of market ticks to the upside. That is astounding. Now, you know, some of these companies were offshoring, and they have actually reversed their offshoring. There actually are some acoustic guitar manufacturers that are actually starting to reopen their American plants. Now, of course, because of wage costs, taxes, and all the things involved in that, I could see how that would affect the bottom line, and you could see these guitars going up in price like that. Cost of wood, the cost of shipping materials, yada yada. You guys know that. Yeah, okay, that's a lot of money to have that kind of increase in that amount of time. But there are factors there that would, mitigating circumstances that we'll call it, that would say, okay, I could see how that could be, but still, that's something. That's something. And I'm, as you know, of the mindset that once you find a good, I mean, there are cats out there who are just like electric guitar owners. They will buy multiple acoustic guitars. They will have, and you don't have to be, a country star in order to have that kind of fixation. But for most people, for home enthusiasts, for small studio owners, one good acoustic will do you. And for me, not a big deal there because I'm not in the market for acoustic. As you know, I have my Yamaha, which is coming up on 25 years old here in a minute, and maybe even older, and just not in the market for an acoustic guitar. And I kind of wish I was a year ago because now, excuse me. Sorry, guys. A lot of pollen in the air today. Sorry, excuse me. I'm not in the market for it. Really, it's just something that is just not in the future. Fortunately, I've had the same. Sorry, guys, since '91. Yeah, I've had mine since '97. It was a '94 model. It was unsold in the Yamaha shop in Shibuya in Japan, and I happened to be walking by 3 years later that day and got it on sale. Got it discounted. Thank you, Mickey. Yeah, my allergies up. I never had allergies until I moved to Japan. And then I started developing them all my adult life up until I was 26 years old. Never had an allergy. Now, look at me. I'm a sad shell of myself, of my former self. Yeah, acoustic guitars, guys, man, what do you think? I mean, I'm not in the market for. You got a good one, you're good. And, that's something, for me, if I were to invest in an acoustic guitar, it would be something that would be investment worthy, because that would be the only way that I would do something like that. As it stands right now, no, not a big desire for me to have multiple acoustic guitars. And I really wonder about the market out there. I don't know. I that's just one thing that I never really research. I like to dig into things, as you guys know, a bit of a bookworm in that regard. But I have no idea about that market in terms of consumption. I could only assume that gas exists there just like it does in any other market. So there's got to be something there about it. I know the acoustic buyers have got to be feeling the heat, even more so than the electric guys. Hell, it would make me, if I was a folk singer, it'd make me switch over like Joni Mitchell to electric, or Bob Dylan, get everybody pissed. Sorry guys, I can't afford those acoustics anymore. I gotta switch up here. But price increases, guys. I'm out there, in the case of finding clients' guitars and finding guitars that I think people would be interested in buying or swapping or things of that nature. Since I'm such a small scale, I can be selective. But the big scale retail guys, just getting back to that, circling back to that, um, they're in a precarious kind of situation because there's a surplus, there's a glut out there. I think that points to another reason why you got those prices up and down all over the place. I bet you if I went to that store, Backs, that was selling it for 17.50 and say, "Hey, I just bought it for 11.50. Give me the same deal," and show them the receipt, they would match it. You know, they don't have. I mean, the markups in the secondhand market are due to a lot of reasons on the seller's side, a misunderstanding of what a secondhand market is and what that represents. But in the case of the retailers, they don't have that option. They don't have that kind of bubble, not bubble, but they don't have that kind of cushion to play with. They have, which is why Barry was telling me that he's looking at his Epiphone Gibson situation because of this market, because of the way it is. These guys are getting squeezed because there's not a lot of consumers out there right now, as you know, who are buying these items, and you just keep getting these price increases put on you where your map pricing in your store is all over the place as a result. That couldn't make you happy as a dealer, and in Barry's case, I could say probably not. And it creates a situation where the consumer is a little bit put off as well. Like, well, why is this over here but this over there? Hey man, I'm looking to get the Squire 40th year anniversary vintage blonde. Is it a good guitar? Yeah. Hey, I got that guitar. It's good enough for me. I've got to say. You're talking about the Telecaster, right? That is an awesome guitar. Guys, Fender Squire, like I said, I've gotten Epiphones in here that have had issues, as you know. Not a lot, but the Fender Squires the Fender guitars with this Kurt Cobain jack stain, and the Squire are two that I've had in. They're fantastic guitars. Hey, thank you for joining in from the sunny state of Florida. I appreciate it. Good afternoon to or early evening to you, as I seem to think, recall. And yeah, evening. And so I really was impressed. And yeah, you should get that one. When I started in the industry many, many years ago, the average markup at the dealers was around 50. But yeah, yeah, those margins are getting interesting for the dealers, as I was indicating there. So I wouldn't want to be a dealer. They force you to buy a certain amount, there's a certain buy-in. It's just like the casino. There's a buy-in. Squire's outstanding for bottom pad over. Hey, you know what? I dig you on the modding platform, but with that Squire Telecaster, uh, I was so lucky that I was ingratiated with a great pickup in the bridge position. But as it stood, um, there was nothing wrong with that. And also, and I told the kid that I bought the Fender jack stang for. I told him, hey, do not mod this guitar. Whatever you do, do not get it in your mind to make any modifications on this for a couple of reasons. First of all, these pickups, if you take them out and you flip on the back side, it'll say Kurt Cobain, jack stang, bridge, and neck on the back. I said, a guitar like this, you want to keep it as OG original as possible. Yeah, it's a great guitar. I couldn't recommend it more. You don't need to buy the Fender version, the American Pro 2 for $1 billion. Another price, another markup, another price increase example there. No, go with the Squires. The Squires, man, it was as good. It plays and feels as good as my old made in Japan Fender. They're pretty much awesome. Yeah, this one I told him don't mod it. I said keep it original. It came with a soft case. And that was the other thing with the acoustic guitars as well that a lot of guys on the acoustic forums were griping about is that they're getting these huge price increases and the companies are starting to ship their guitars in soft cases. Now, I know we're a mixed bag out there in terms of audience, in terms of preference of soft case or hard case. You guys know that I fall in the hard case department because, I've moved around quite a bit and I have learned that for me, that's what works. Your mileage may vary. But but I've also said that if I'm spending that kind of money, $3,400 and up on an instrument, I dang well expect to get a hard case for. Yeah, the Squire Anniversary and Classic Vibe are outstanding as is. There you go. You got a lot of validation out there, man, on that one. That's a good buy. But they're shipping with soft cases. This Kurt Cobain shipped with a Fender soft case. And I said to him, I said, hey, I know you're digging the soft case. I know you probably keep your guitar as well, but you might want to consider trying to find a hard case, $50, 50 euros. I said, and if you want help with it, I'll help you secure it. But that is astounding. Those kind of price increases and the fact that they can't even throw in a $50. Their margins are so tight that they can't even squeeze in. And then they'll say, oh, well, most consumers presume a soft case. Let me tell you something. It is a whole heck of a lot more dramatic to open up a guitar box. I got a couple of them over here, the boxes they come in. Open that up, pull that guitar out, and it's a hard case wrapped up as opposed to a soft case. It's a different kind of thing. And when you physically undo the latches on that case and open it up, it's a whole lot better than zipping that bag open. There's a lot to it. There's a lot to that. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I smelled too much formaldehyde and by opening too many boxes or something. But it is a quantitative type of deal there. It's something that is different. There's a difference between doing those two actions. And I find and I submit to you that the hard case is a far more sensational kind of thing. And the quality of it makes you feel like you got something. Get something in a soft case. I'm sorry, I still feel like it's back in the day when Squires came in soft cases. It's got that kind of, no, this is a Fender. It should have a hard case. So, but the margins are getting squeezed. They can't even afford to do that. So dig that, man. Again, like I said, I wish I had bought a year or so ago because if I was in the market to buy an acoustic guitar, I think that moment has passed. We'll see. Globalization caused this. It causes glut in the market. I agree with a guitar being in a card case that feels more valuable. Yes, it feels more valuable. And I don't feel like, it was cool for me. Can price keep going up? Of course. Yes. Yes. And once they go up, with the rare exception and I opened with that, I mentioned the one with Gibson because they went up, they came down, and then they went right back up again. I love my acoustic. Oh yeah. So we get back to that every week. The mantra of "I'm good." We take a look around and we say to ourselves, "Oh, I'm okay. I'm good." I've had the same acoustic guitar for decades, and unlike I keep it very well. and get it looked at by Fern once a year. And I'll never have a problem with that. Never have a need for another one. I'm good in that regard. But if I hadn't made it, yeah, I'm not trying to get preachy here. I'm just pointing out that that's a huge jump. A $2,400 Martin last year is now $3,400. I wouldn't feel good about going out and buying one of those right now if I was in the need to. I'd feel rotten about it that I didn't jump on that last year. So there's a lot of confusion out there in the market. Is the point of all this? I bring these examples to you guys every week. The stuff that I'm dealing with, being a dealer, a small dealer, and going out and in the wilds out there, the price will continue to go while the value of our money goes down. Well, yeah, that's the corollary is there as well. You can't print money. We know this, since Jekyll Island, in the shenanigans that happened back in 1915, the value of the dollar, which used to be valued against gold. You want to know the real value of where the dollar should be, look at the price of an ounce of gold. That'll tell you a whole lot, because it used to be a correlation of 1 to gold. We got off the gold standard, and the value of the dollar went to trash, and gold went the other way. That's where, again, I keep talking about price being the territory, and go and value being the X marks the spot. And you can look at things like that in order to kind of give you an idea, corollary to kind of give you an idea of where things really are. So yes, as the value of all currencies, not just the dollar, the euro, the pound, the peso. No, the pesos don't exist anymore. The euro, the yuan, the yen. Look at the yen right now. It's terrible. Buying guitars right now in euros for me is extremely cheap. Where it's getting me is the shipping rates. The shipping rates right now are astronomical. It represents 1/3 of the value of most of the instruments that I'm buying, and I do not get that back. So if I'm buying something, I have to bake that in my cake, and I have to pass that on. And so that's a part of it too, I'm quite sure. What's my dream guitar? What's my dream guitar? Well, I've never had anybody ask me that question before. That's a fantastic question. That caught me off guard. What is my dream guitar? I have no idea. What's everyone's dream guitar? Yeah, there you go. Ask among yourselves, what are your dream guitars? I'm sure the answers are different. My dream guitar is the one that I'm playing at the moment. My dream guitar right now, believe it or not, is this Vox Hermana Stoner Les Paul that I'm playing, because I have owned many, played many, and been through a buttload of Les Pauls, and I love that. That one is the best playing one I've had yet. Kurt Cobain Jaguar. Yeah, the Jaguar. Yeah, that one is pricey. Those are reaching upwards of 1800 US, 2000. Those are a little bit, it's really that, but I tell you, that Jag Stang it represents a pretty dang good value. If you were thinking about the Jaguar and the Jag Stang, I would seriously take a look at that Jag Stang if you can bear with the colors. There's only 2 colors. A very fine example of early 60s Casket would be exceptional. Okay, thank you. You kind of got my mind working. You know what my dream guitar is? I actually thought about what it is. It is a 1968 Les Paul. 74 Les Paul Custom. Yeah. Mine is the first run of the Les Paul when they stopped doing the SG and they went back to the old 1960 version. Les Paul, not the one with the mini humbuckers, but the one with the full, and it's got a little crown on top. Those are very rare. They did those for the first part, 68, 69, and then they switched over to mini humbuckers, and you don't have the crown at the top of the headstock. So a crown inlay headstock, full size humbucker, Les Paul from 68, 68, I believe is the year. That would be my dream guitar to have. Right now, when you find them out in the wild, you're looking at around 14, I'm sorry, about 20, depending upon the condition, between 14 to $21,000. So not, not in the realm of things, not an overly expensive dream to have, but that is a car because, in my opinion, you got all the guys who worked on that guitar, who worked on your Les Pauls, the 15, the 58, 50, 57, 50, going back to the early 50s. It's the same guys at the same factory, and therefore, you're getting something. You're getting, they're pancake bodies on that. They did make that change in design, I believe, in that model, but still, you're getting a Les Paul made from the guys who made the Les Pauls that guys are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on for. In that light of those numbers, it's a significant discount. So yeah, that's my dream guitar, and it's got to have its original case, everything original. I don't want any swapped out tuners, or we had to do the bridge. 62 Strat, pre-CBS Strats. Gretsch. Yeah. That'd be a nice one. I got you on that Gretsch. What inspired me to play guitar myself? Jose Feliciano. Jose Feliciano had an album called From 4 to 25. Back released around 1971, I believe, when that album came out. And as a kid, my mother bought that album. And it was him playing acoustic guitar, doing covers. Like he did a cover of First of May. He did a cover of a Bee Gees song. A lot of covers on that. And I used to listen to that as a kid. And then I told you, my mom was country. So then we would listen to Bob Denver. Not Bob, John Denver. Bob Denver is Gilligan. Sorry. We listened to John Denver. And so that's where the inspiration wasn't from a rock until we went to go see heavy metal. My mom and I, we went to go see heavy metal. And that's when it really kicked in. So that's my story why I got interested in guitar. Before that, I played piano. I always had a piano in the house. I took formal piano lessons. So, I got a piano keyboard sitting here right next to me. So that's always been there. But yeah, the guitar, that's how that got started with me, listening to those records. Which leads me to our final topic tonight. How are we doing out there, everybody? My 74 Les Paul bin, but dare I say, at 59, well, everybody wants a 59. They're out there. They trade hands, but that's what I'm saying. A 68 Les Paul, Kurt Cobain. Yeah, Kurt, when he hit the scene with that sound, his particular sound, there's that Pam and Tommy Netflix series, or was it HBO, where it talked about Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee and their relationship. And in one of the scenes of that movie, Tommy Lee and his band were outside of the Old Tower Records up there on Sunset Boulevard. I know it well. And they were doing a live promo kind of thing. And all of these grunge kids were over on the side of the crowd, and they were just laughing and sneering at them. Unfortunately, I never got to be around when he was around. I was born and deaf, yeah. And they started sneering at this, that 80s hair, thing, because this was this was 89. That's only 6,000 dollars left from the original 50. Yeah. the ledger sheet on those bursts is pretty interesting. It's the only guitar out there that you know on paper it has 1,500 and there's about 4,000 out there available. So you got to be real discerning. You better get yourself a real expert to take a look at it before you lay down any real money for one of those, because trust me, there's more fakes than reals out there. The 68, like I said again, it doesn't have that kind of cachet on it, so you know, less chance of you running into issues with that. But they were sneering at Tommy and laughing because grunge was hitting, and whereas technically I was an '80s teenager in the early '80s, and I grew up with all those hair metal bands. I kind of identified with grunge more. Yeah, I like Dr. Feelgood. Who doesn't like that? You know, he's the one they call Dr. Feelgood. You know, I love that. You know, that's rocking, but it's not something that I was putting on all the time. When Nirvana and Soundgarden and Green Day and all that stuff came out, that's when I, in my 20s at that point, was saying, oh, okay, you know, this is something. And so, yeah, I can dig that. But that transition period, you know, is real. You know, it was really, and it was abrupt. And if you were in a hair metal band, you were screwed. because no, because the record companies, they weren't going to sign you anymore. All those guys out there on the Sunset Strip playing at the whiskey night after night, hoping to get their deal. Grunge came down, you know, and just ransacked like the Huns, and just tore through the industry, and that was it for a lot of that period of time. That again, that time on the Sunset Strip in L.A. was, I saw Soundgarden '92, blew my teenage mind. Yeah, yeah, it was because it was completely different sonically. And yeah, you know, it just blew those guys out of the water, and the Sunset Strip never was the same after that. Whiskey and all those clubs, they were never the same. It wasn't like it was in the heyday of, I would say, 1982, I'd say around 1989, that 9 year period. Maybe a little bit. Maybe I'll go so far as to say 90s, going 91 maybe, but then it was gone. And it was just another one of those, you had to be there to experience it. Wasn't a lot of brothers hanging around up there, but I made my way up there, and glad that I did. Saw a lot of great bands, and learned a lot too. But yeah, you know, Jock and I got together today, earlier, and filmed one of our interviews, talks, discussion, not interviews, because it's really just a discussion where we pick a topic. And the topic that's coming up that we discussed was the old business, music school, not music, music industry business model and the new business model. And I won't give a whole lot away about it, what we talked about, but a little bit I'd like to get into. Is the fact that you as an artist now are, you know, when I was growing up, there were gatekeepers. There were gatekeepers to keep you either in or keep you out or let you in into the business. And because in the 90s, the period that was a golden age for the music industry, by any metric, they were flush with money. And because they were flush with money, even the independent, you know, producers such as myself, engineers, producers, whatever I had to do, mixers, I had an apartment in Hollywood, and had a car, and that was my day-to-day job, going to this studio to do this, going to record that, going to mix this, delivering something, or even delivering food to an artist. Those were the things that I would do. Setting up Struder tape machines, and as Jock was saying, you had to have two in those major studios. But these are the things that I did in order to get in, to show to the gatekeepers, hey, this guy is pretty okay. He's young, but he keeps his mouth shut. He plays, by the rules, our rules, and we're going to bring him in. Well, for every one guy like me who made it in, there were hundreds of guys who did not. And that's just a fact. And it has nothing to do, of those 100 guys more that did not, instead of me, I guarantee you a large percentage of them were far more talented than me. Some less, some more. But so that had nothing to do with it. No, it was about knowing somebody. Now, in the modern age, record companies don't have that kind of power over artists anymore. You don't need a 48-track recording studio in order to make your album sound good. You can do it at home using, your laptop if you have the right equipment, which is available now at a fraction of the cost of even one of those Struder tape machines. You could set up a full recording studio for what you would pay for one of those Struder tape machines. Those things were $50,000 a piece. And that's not even getting into the cost of maintaining it. My cat right now is in front of me eating plastic for some reason. I don't know why. She's the kitten. She's the youngest one. I don't know why she's gotten into eating plastic. I really wish that she wouldn't. Don't eat plastic, Ellie. But you can, for that kind of money, you could more than put together an excellent. Could you imagine $50,000 today? What kind of rig you could put together? With that kind of mine is a fraction of that, and it's quite good. So, here, sweetie, say hello. Hey, everybody, this is my youngest one. This is Ellie. Say hello, Ellie. You're the one that's always making me interrupt my live stream, so you might as well say hello. It's just, hey, everybody say hello, Ellie. I just sit back and I'm amazed by the advances in technology. And with these advances in technology, the companies she's a beauty, have lost, she was a stray. I'll tell you guys a story of how I picked her up off the street. Her two sisters and her brother were all kittens in Singapore. And I picked her up as a stray. Found them homes, and she came with me. Didn't you, sweetie? I'm just amazed by the leaps and bounds of advances that are made in technology. And the record companies no longer have those gatekeepers. They're not in the position to call those kind of shots anymore, where they can prevent you from either making or breaking your career. As artists now, we have way more freedom. And that was Jock's point. In the beginning of our discussion, and you guys will see it this week when it comes up, I was more of a skeptic. I was saying to myself, boy, and we talk about mechanical royalties. With there no longer being mechanical royalties, and that slush fund of money, it's made it impossible for young artists to do the kind of things that he and I did, where we could, hey, we'll pay you $400 if you run over here and mix this one day, and the next day, hey, if you come over here and do this setup for me, we'll give you $1,000, or we can't pay you now, but we could make money. Guns N' Roses made the most expensive album ever, $10 million. How? Well, yeah. See, and that's record company accounting. Again, and those kind of expenditures and that kind of spends on the record company side, by the way, you will never see those days again. You won't see the signing of $50 million for Madonna, $100 million for Prince, where the truth of the matter, it actually, by signing that, he screwed himself. He had a better publishing deal before he signed that deal to get that stupid $100 million just so he could read it in a newspaper. And he ended up costing himself far more than that. So I'll get into that when we talk about contracts one of these days and how you can screw yourself with those things. But even those kind of big spends, you will not see those anymore. They do not exist. They don't do that, and they can't. There's money being made in the music industry, and Jock and I will talk about that next. But where is it really going? But in the case of young artists out there today, yeah, man, it is tough. Sure, you can get in if you got a good setup and you can get a following going, then you can get in where they're asking you, not the other way around. So we used to be in the position of asking them in. Now they're saying, hey, we see you've got 100 million followers on such and such. Why don't you come over here with your single and we'll sign you up and we'll screw you 6 ways a Sunday where you were making more money before you independently. Jock and I differ on that. He thinks it's a good thing. I don't. I don't. But he says that, well, anyway, I'm spoiling the discussion, but he feels that they are now more, it's the distribution and the marketing strengths that they have that are their true value as record companies. And that's true. I do agree with that. That is the truth. That's the one thing that they can do for you as an independent artist is they can level you up, so to speak, as Jock says. But on the whole, we could make a living back then in the day. I was working for Babyface at night, or sometimes if they called me in the studio, I'd come in during the day. The rest of the days of the week, I was hustling. I was mixing this record here. I was recording Smokey Robinson here. I was building a recording studio for a guy who had a lot of money, who could afford it, out in Lancaster, doing a wire, buying all the board and setting it up. And so there was a living that could be made then that I just don't see. And with the closing, I touched on this a little bit last week about the increasing amount of closing of clubs for bands to even play at, and even try to make the little bit of money that they could, the beer money that they would make, and that's always been so. But from that situation, that's getting less and less. And I just, it's an interesting topic. Tune in this week, guys. To that, I will put that up this week. Uncle Carlton was feeling better, guys. He was kind enough to sit down and finally get to part 2 of his interview, where he was talking about the time that he spent. We're losing so many live venues over. Yeah, that's what I was talking about, Mickey. It was the UK, and it was an article about the live venues in the UK specifically that I was reading about. And as a result of that, really seriously, it's limiting their. We had so many live venues back in the 90s, guys. It's crazy. I didn't want to play live then, but if I wanted to go out and be a live player during that, there was more money in being a studio guy then. It really was the fact. So that's the direction that I went. But if I wanted to play live, sure. I could have grabbed my keyboard. I could have put together a group. I could have joined a group. I could have done a number of things. Or the bass. I was playing bass and keyboards at that time. Not a lot of guitar. Mostly, I played guitar, of course. But my main thing was bass and keyboard. But, now, no, you don't have that. and that's a shame. So yeah, you guys, we as independent artists, you have gained control over your product. You don't have a record label coming in and saying, you know what, there's too many guitars in this. Why don't you cut that out? I was watching the documentary for Wham. You know, I'm not going to be ashamed. You guys are Wham. You know, what the hell are you doing listening to Wham? But you want to know what, guys? George Michael, at 20 years old, produced a #1 album. And anybody in this room, anybody, Bueller, can you raise your hand and say when you were 20 years old, you had a #1 record that you wrote and produced yourself? No? Anybody? Okay. Yeah. No. None of us. 20 years old. And and out there doing it. But in their case, again, it's a situation where their contracts were screwy. Yeah, uh, George Michael. As a matter of fact, I'm actually thinking about doing a show, my regular content show, just talking about, uh, yeah, just talking about George as a producer and not slighting Andrew Ridgely either. You know, everybody says it's like, you know, Hall and Oates. Well, you know, Hall is the real talent, but Oates is just the kind of the backup guy playing guitar. No, no, he was a essential part of that songwriting duel, just like Andrew Ridgely was very important in the earlier albums with Wham. I remember George fighting his record company for years. Yes, were these things that I'm talking about, and that's the reason I mentioned Wham here, because of these issues with the old model, and why did Guns N' Roses produce a $10 million album? Well, it was because of accounting and the way they did things back then. And George, and even though they had Young Guns, which was their first single, both of those co-writers on that, Club Tropicana, they both wrote that song. It wasn't until you got into Wake Me Up Before You Go Go when George started taking over the writing solely. But prior to that, it was the two of them. And they were getting screwed. They had a #1 song. It came out, they got signed, they got screwed, by the way. Didn't go anywhere. Record company said to them, hey, go out on the road, do a little touring, develop a little bit of an audience, and come back to us. They did that, got a shot to go on top of the Pops, and the rest is history with that group. That same song that wouldn't even chart before suddenly became a #1 song. Was it any worse of a song than it was before? I'll leave you to ponder upon that, you know. But anyway, they got up there, but the record labels were supporting them. They were putting them in the development, and just because they didn't bomb with their first single, they stuck with them. Now, they screwed them on their contracts because these guys now had a #1 single and they were still sleeping at home in their parents' flat. You know. And so that was one of the aspects. I throw that out there to say that the old business model wasn't all gravy either. They could screw you 6 ways to Sunday them, but at least George was able to go to clubs with Andrew in the group, and they were able to perform and make a little bit of money, and they were able to go on. These days, you can't even do that. That option doesn't really exist. So it's even harder. Yeah, technology, we don't have the gatekeepers anymore, but on the other hand, we have a deficit of places in order for you to interact, not just like this through YouTube, but in person in a venue where you can really vibe out that artist. It's getting smaller, 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 smaller. I'm suspicious by nature. I wonder, you know, is there a program involved there? Is there something involved there that's causing this to happen? You know, leave that for you to speculate this evening on, my friends. But yeah, there it is. You know, I love Wham. I could sit here for hours and talk about George Michael producing because I'm amazed by it. I am amazed by the fact that he at such a young age really invigorated the pop music scene in a way that people don't give him credit. As a matter of fact, like I said, people kind of disparage Wham and George Michael these days. But I think that he was a very important producer. You talked about the song Freedom. Well, there was the first version of Freedom, and then there was the second version that he did. George Michael produced some great work. His solo albums are class, yeah. He went to the States to cut Careless Whisper with a well-known session producer with the cutting crew, the well-known that was called the cutting crew. Anyway, the Wrecking Crew. No, the Wrecking Crew is West Coast. I forget the name of this other group, but more in the South to go cut at this famous studio that Aretha Franklin cut at, Ray Charles cut there. A lot of these guys cut there, and he went there to cut this song with these session musicians, with this producer. It came back. I heard it. If you listen to the documentary, they play the actual one that he did in the States of that song, and it was terrible. It was terrible. I mean, okay, this is a guy who's produced a lot of famous, done a lot of records. This isn't it. It just so that guy couldn't produce this kind of record. George could. George says, I'm not putting this out like this. I'm going to recut this and do it myself. And that's the version that we hear. He went through 9 saxophone players to find the one guy that had the tone that he liked that he put on the record. He was that kind of attention to detail producer. And it wouldn't just put out anything. And it wasn't free for him to go and cut that record, but he just said, hey, you know what? I'm not putting it out. Now, we have, as I was alluding to earlier, as an independent artist, you don't have that anymore. You don't have the record company say, hey, we're going to fly you to such and such, and you're going to cut the record with them. Well, wait a minute. Why do I have to do that? I like my... No. That's how they were. They don't have that power anymore because they're not in your home studio. You can take as short or as long as you want to in my case, to master a record. I'm gonna get to it, but you can take the amount of time you want to. You don't have that kind of pressure. But on the obverse, like I said, there's a lot of things. So it's a mixed bag is the point. So check it out this week. Jock and I talking about that, discussing that. I think you'll find the conversation interesting. I did a review of the Dear Armand as well. That will be coming out either this week or this weekend next coming up. Not a standard review. I didn't do it from the context that I generally do. I play a little bit and then I talk about how it's made. No, I talked about how Fender really screwed the pooch on that guitar. And how, hey, Anthony, so happy to have you here. Welcome. Getting ready to leave. But better late than never, I always say. But they really screwed the pooch in themselves and the consumer with that guitar because that is a fantastic guitar that I, of no doubt, if they stuck with that line and mass produced it and it was available to this day, it would be something that people would be talking about as equally as Gretsch's. It's just, or even something different then, because it really wasn't that either. It was something in itself. But I did a kind of discussion about the history of that guitar and why that is. And Sunbase wrote in on that, and he contributed a line or two that I use. So thank you, Sunbase, for that. I appreciate that, brother, very much, contributing to that. And that's coming up, guys. I am going to call it quits. For Sunday, man, I have just been running around today. And then because we had a cold orange here in the Netherlands. On last Wednesday, we had a tropical depression. 200-year-old trees here in front of my house got knocked down. The subway line, could you repeat everything? How about if I do it in Klingon? Would that be okay? I'll repeat everything, but as long as I can do it in Klingon. Nerp. The subway here runs in front of my house. The trees brought down the cables. This line is still not up, and it's been 4 days later. We had a hell of a storm blow through here, and today they said another storm was coming through, so everybody was like, holy crap, we better batten down the hatches. It ended up being a pretty heavy storm, but nothing like it was the other day. And so it's been wild weather here, and as a result of that, I had to do a lot of running around earlier today with that in mind that I generally wouldn't have done, and now I'm tired. Well, it's midnight, for God's sake, so I should be tired. But I'm actually wore out, so I'm going to call it quits here. I want to thank you guys, all of you guys, for showing up. 13 guys, 8 likes here. Something wrong with the math there. Help me out, guys. Hit those likes, hit those likes. Let's get those likes going. But thanks for showing up, guys, and listening to me this evening. I hope you, what made you move to the Netherlands? I'll answer that. I lived in Singapore. I was working for an agency there that was based out of London, doing TV commercials, music. The pandemic hit, and my position at that time disappeared, and I had to make a decision about was I going to stay in Singapore and under those conditions at that time, which is not very appealing, or finally make the dive, spend all my treasure, and move here to Holland, where I always wanted to move to eventually anywhere. It was a place that I kind of wanted. I like it here. It's a combination of the city and countryside if I want to have it. Yeah, on the run. Yeah, I'm a man on the run. And so I did that. I moved here. I just do right in the middle of everybody that was here was leaving. All the expats that were living here at the time. And the reason I got such a great apartment is because nobody was here. And the real estate agents were begging. Now it's the opposite. You know, those guys just sit there and twirl their phone while people walk around the room because they don't have to say anything. They know that if the person's got the money, they got the deal. But back then it was different. So that was good timing on my part too, because the real estate market here in Holland, it's particularly in Amsterdam, is difficult. So it was just a timing thing too. It was just a gut instinct. I've always, all the moves, I've literally lived around the planet now. Start in LA, go to Japan, England, Netherlands, Singapore. You know, if you go around, you know, you've gone around the globe there with that map. And so it's just a gut thing that made me make the move. That's all I can tell you. That's really what it was. And it proves so far, it's tough, guys. Gotta hustle. You know, I would hope at this stage in my life that I would have to hustle less, but it's a good hustle because I'm happy where I'm at. I mean, it's a trade-off. Yeah, I gotta work harder, but I'm happy to be here and I can sit here with you guys and enjoy your company, and that's always a plus. So I want to thank you guys for showing up and for keeping the encouragement going. Do the hustle. Yeah, that's what we all do. We all hustling. And, you know, it's a good thing because idle hands are the devil's playground, and that's for real. That's for real. So keep busy. Yeah, man, you know, guys, have a good week. Keep yourself safe, and I will see you same bad time, same bad channel next week. And take care. Bye-bye.